when the screws tighten on one end, there is a challenge. But like they say, all challenges throw up opportunities as well. And so that's a time where if you can switch your gear, go focus on quality, you can be actually bang on target and be on top of the game while everybody is playing catch up.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the High Level Spotlight Sessions, where we showcase awesome marketers doing awesome marketing. Today, I am joined by Ray S. from Linkdra. Linkdra is a prospecting tool that enables you to find, connect, and convert prospects on LinkedIn. And now with the new HighLevel integration, you can push those prospects straight into HighLevel. Ray, thanks so much for coming on to join us.
Hey, thanks, Chase. Always a pleasure and excited to be here today.
So let's hop into it. I mean, prospecting is one of the most important pieces of our world, right? So we need to get clients for ourselves. We need to help our customers get clients oftentimes. And it can be the hardest part, I think, especially if you're new to the journey. And so LinkedIn came around. LinkedIn is an amazing place to find people you're looking for because they're so well categorized. But Ray, talk to me about sort of what's happened over the years with LinkedIn and why it's become such a challenge, like as opposed to in the beginning, I feel it was pretty easy. You could send anyone a connection request and they were happy to get contacted and chat. And now it's kind of like everyone's, it's definitely different now.
It is. So you're right, absolutely. It was easy. And like everything in life, it becomes too easy and too many people jump in. Then the fun doesn't last very long. And that's precisely what's happening with LinkedIn in a good sense, because look, this is how email marketing or email program was about 10 years back, maybe 15 years back. I'm not going back way to, let's say, 2 decades back, but let's say, the golden first decade of this century was still email marketing days. And then the spam filters came in, the promotion tabs came in, and it became harder and harder and harder, right? And today on iOS, we have loss tracking as well for all practical purposes, which means you cannot rely on open rates. And very soon, all platforms will follow that because that's kind of the bellwether. And so in the mix of everything that is happening, so it's not just LinkedIn, everywhere the screws are tightening. Mm-hmm. And which means just one thing, which is like you cannot get away by blasting out a lot of messages and hoping something will stick. People would be fine in saying, hey, I sent it out to 5,000 people. Even if I get 5% to open, I'm still got plenty, right?
Right.
So they were not bothered about the percentage. All they wanted was I can blast out as many as possible.
The spray and pray approach.
Yep, spray and pray. So we talk about that and saying that's not happening anymore. And Lehman world, it has already become limited because the more you do, your reputation goes bad, and so you're not going to hit it. On LinkedIn particularly, it's worse in the sense that the restrictions apply much, much sooner. 5,000 is like a pipe dream. It's never going to happen. It's in hundreds. And within that, you got to be very, very careful, because if your strike rate is not very good, then you have a chance of what people would call it as the LinkedIn jail. You might just end up there. So this is where, when we started last year, and we are a very young company in this, we started last year, and that time LinkedIn was still pretty liberal, and we were doing certain things in a certain way, but we were always about results and not by how many you send out, but how many you get back. Mm-hmm. And a year forward, that story has become even more interesting, because the way we do it is kind of now coming in very handy, because we were all about quality, not quantity. And today everybody is looking for quality now, because the days of quantity are kind of gone. They're not coming back. And so that's what is happening on LinkedIn and in general in the entire outreach world. And it's not just LinkedIn, but I thought I'll give that context for all the viewers and saying hey, when the screws tighten on one end, there is a challenge, but like they say, all challenges throw up opportunities as well. And so that's a time where if you can switch your gear, go focus on quality, you can be actually bang on target and be on top of the game while everybody is playing catch up.
So talk to me about
So
how it
yeah.
works. I mean, to be honest, never, I wasn't in sales. I didn't do much prospecting when I was back running operations at an agency. But from what I understand, the gist of it is, hey, we're a dental marketing agency, so we need to talk to dentists. Let's go into LinkedIn and search for dentists. It doesn't matter what state they're in. And then talk to me about what happens from there.
Right. So you brought up a very interesting use case. This is actually, by the way, a fairly common use case. I don't know, for some reason, a whole boatload of people are looking for dentists. And jokes apart,
It's a classic.
classic. No, classic, but it's kind of true because I know from our user base that there are three sets of people who are looking for dentists. One, obviously, insurance agents who are looking for dentists to sell liability insurance or small business insurance.
Okay.
It's less obvious to most people, but it's one of the strongest use cases that we have where insurance carriers are selling it to dentists. Then obviously the most obvious option would be equipment manufacturers and suppliers of consumables that dentists use, be it solvents and other agents, right?
Okay.
So medical representatives and all of that, they are looking for dentists. I'm going to throw you for fun's sake the third one, which is even more interesting, right? I didn't think of it, but this is a 2020 use case, did not exist before 2020. Dentists are one profession where patients and the doctor come in very close proximity for a fairly long time and fairly intimate in that sense, if you think about that experience. So think of it in the COVID situation and what that means. And so they have to sanitize their space almost every week, and in some cases, a number of times a week, particularly the busy ones. And so obviously, a large number of sanitization providers have mushroomed in the last 1 year.
Yeah.
And they are looking for dentists, right?
That's an
so they are
interesting
finding
idea
dentists
for a niche as far as marketing, to go after sanitization companies and help them grow. That's interesting.
Yeah. So we know people who were earlier helping real estate agents in clean up properties after they have vacated and stuff like that. Well, last year not much was happening. And so they kind of redirected themselves. So we have, and that's why I said this is a very niche one. But I love to talk about it because I learned a few things from how they operate. That and their strike rate, compared to, let's say, medical representatives, is somewhere up there, simply because nobody's providing that service and dentists need that, right? And so this is how nicely you can reach. And by the way, there are nuances within that, since we are on dentists. So you don't want to reach out to a dentist in a large hospital who's probably just doing a job. You want to reach out to dentists who are independent owners or operating a chain. And so this is where it becomes very, very important for all the rich data that LinkedIn provides, that you can precisely target owners, that too within a 10-mile radius, that you're not reaching out, even though you can reach out to everybody. But let's say the last use case that I shared, or a medical representative use case as well, they would want to go 10, 20-mile radius, not anywhere in the States. And so LinkedIn makes it possible. Something that you cannot do in email marketing. You get the list, but you don't know where they are. But LinkedIn makes it possible to be very, very precise, including age bracket, including their ownership status, including how long they have been in the industry business and stuff like that, to single out and say, hey, you know what, this is my guy. So that's how powerful it is.
Well, so talk to me about, again, my experience prospecting is little, but from what I understand about LinkedIn, their API is not very open, right? They, in general, don't want to just be giving away information, right? They want you to pay for their highest plan, and they want the information to stay within the platform. So when it comes to prospecting on LinkedIn, I've seen a bunch of tools that are advertised as LinkedIn scrapers, right? We scrape data out of LinkedIn some way, somehow. How does that work, and how does Linkdra compare to that type of product?
Right, right. So yeah, that's an interesting play to it, and there's a lot of different nuances to it again. Scraping is one of the favorite targets. In fact, it's not just LinkedIn. For that matter, scraping the entire world of company sites, freely available or publicly available email address, and another whole bunch of companies who are kind of selling you lists of people based on
Hmm.
intent, buying intent, and et cetera, right? And as most people who would have gone through that cycle, they would immediately realize that, not immediately realize the the obvious option is not what they realize. They think, oh, ready-made list, if you spend a few dollars here and there, and I get a list to go. What you miss out is the same list is being sold out to so many people, and so that list is
Sure.
getting that again and again and again and again. And the reason I'm leading with this example is that's also something that is happening on LinkedIn with the LinkedIn's own tools, where you put the same search criteria and boom, you get a list. You feel like top of the world and saying, I got just my right kind of an audience. Now, tell you what, there are probably another, if not thousands, at least a few hundred more people who are probably doing the same search and getting exactly the same results. And then boom, they are reaching out to them and they're not getting answers, right?
Hmm.
And so it's not just about the API and the data. The fundamental problem is how you get your lists. And if you are using a shortcut and an easy way out, then it's very likely there are 10 other people also using the easy way out. And so there is commotion. That does not mean a longer path and a complicated path is going to be more fruitful, but at least you are shaving off a part of the competition who are always looking for a quick buck, right?
Hmm.
Now, this is where Linkdra comes in. So to get that data, we just don't visit LinkedIn at all. And this is one of the
Excuse
key
me.
differentiators. Bless you.
Thanks.
Um, so you know what? That's a good sign for what I'm going to talk next, is because we are probably the only one, the way we do it, where we do not touch LinkedIn at all when we say search for LinkedIn, right? What we do is instead, LinkedIn pages are public, by the way. So they are indexed by a lot of search engines. And so we have an arrangement that we can actually search those indexes rather than directly reach LinkedIn or search LinkedIn. So neither do we need to scrape, nor do we have to have their APIs and stuff like that. And we can still build a list for you, right?
Hmm.
And it happens amazingly quick. Um, in the sense that a few minutes of putting your keywords of what you're looking for, and you would see the results right there. If time permits, I'll give a quick view of it. Otherwise, I'll point you to a demo that is there on the site, right? And so for the list building part of it, this is the cool stuff. If you're doing email marketing, you're spending a ton of money, time, energy, content writing, ads to just acquire those email IDs before you even start your marketing, right? And there's so much of preparation work goes. And like I said, buying the list is not productive. It's a waste of time. Whereas the way we do it is your list is going to be ready in like 5 minutes. So the dentist in, let's say, Atlanta or New York, or take even a smaller place like Charleston, in 5 minutes, you would have pretty much all the independent owner dentists in Charleston. And the good news is this is pretty unique in the sense you're not going through the standard LinkedIn search, so which means you will get them in a very different order than what LinkedIn would give you, which
Hmm.
means the chances are that the people are reaching out to, they would not have heard from too many people, and you're probably one of the early birds there. And so your response rate depends on multiple factors, but one is how often they are abused. Sorry for
Sure.
using that phrase, but it really is in some sense. The second is what you are writing. And then third, most important, is what is your profile? Because when you're sending out an email, you're just an email. Nobody knows, which is why the retention rate or the acceptance rate or the open rates are very low. Whereas on LinkedIn, they know you. They have a profile to see who you are. And so if it's a powerful profile, your acceptance rates will just shoot up, right? And so that's how productive it is to marketeers, particularly two segments where ads don't help or it just become too expensive or you're in such a niche,
Hmm.
or for companies who are in an early days or agencies themselves where they have to search their clients or help their clients find more clients. So customer. Typically, this is like the bread and butter for many of those people to find leads in a very, very narrow niche segment. So I have a couple of them, like caterers who are looking to find, let's say, auto dealerships to do a what kind of customer lunch session or something like that. So very, very focused. They know exactly whom to reach and how to reach, and that becomes very, very powerful use case. Right? So a short question that you had, but a fairly long answer, but hopefully I kind of ticked off what typically people have in mind is saying, how the hell does it work, right? But
Yeah.
and the trick is don't visit LinkedIn at all. And that way your reputation on LinkedIn stays super high because you're not even reaching there.
But you are, once you have the list, you are doing the outreach through LinkedIn, right?
That's right. But then by the time you would have built and trimmed your list, because all based on the public data that is available, you can trim it down to number of connections they have, which city they are in, which county they are in, and stuff like that. So you would have shortened down your list quite a bit without touching LinkedIn. Is the last connect that you go to LinkedIn for, which is true if you are using for a benefit that reaching out on LinkedIn also means that you do not have a spam filter and you don't have a promotion tab. So whatever you send reaches 100%.
Okay, so you use Linkdra, you run a search, it kind of goes around LinkedIn to get the data, which is interesting. So you get data back that's different than the data you would get if you were just scraping from LinkedIn or getting the data directly from LinkedIn. Mm-hmm. And then you automate an outreach. And then can you automate what happens next if somebody replies? Yep. Like, where does it go from there?
Yeah, so we keep it all within LinkedIn, plus with HighLevel integration as well as email. That's the cool part of it. Since we are on this topic, let me see if I can share a slide that will lay out the process very clearly. Is that okay?
Sure, yeah.
So this is how the process runs quickly before I talk about what happens in the follow-up part. We covered kind of the steps anyways to some extent, but you define your target audience, you set up roles, key roles, locations, etc., etc. You run a search, you score the results, which is number 4, which is how we use the public data to even fine tune what is good candidate, what is not. And then it's only in number 5 is the first time you're hitting LinkedIn with a connection request. And then number 6 is where we follow up with a campaign once they accept. So this is how a campaign is set up. Typically, your first one is a yellow dotted one, which is how you're reaching out. This is just a illustrative examples. And so you send it out, you get one shot, so it better be good. 300 characters, one shot. So make the best of it. Once they accept, you send out a thank you note, very cool, low-key. You check your guns on the door, like they say, right? You don't come in guns blazing and saying, I want to sell and blah, 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 right? You wait for a couple of days. In this case, it's 1 day, but you can wait for a week or even longer. Share something interesting. Still no sales pitch. Usually that's the recipe that we give and saying, do not start selling, because LinkedIn is not the place where people are expecting. Nurture it. That is what nurturing and drip campaign is all about, right? So do it. And then if they still don't follow up, then send a gentle reminder and say, hey, you know what, do you have time to talk for 15 minutes or 5 minutes or whatever your style is, right? And so that comes after third or the fourth message after you have shared something of value. In spite of that, if they have not responded, only then you follow up. And then the final message, last try kind of thing. So with Go HighLevel integration, what becomes interesting is this. So these are the 2 segments, and let me take the left part first, and then I'll do the right part. So we talked about search extensively, so I'm going to skip that. So you build your list, and then you send out a connection request on LinkedIn. Once they accept, you have access to their email ID now. So before then, you don't have their email ID yet. But through this, you legitimately get access to their email ID. Send them a thank you note and say, hey, you know what? I'm going to also drop you an email, right? And if you got that email, this is where the Go HighLevel integration comes in. The integration data would push the contact details along with the LinkedIn message to Go HighLevel, and then you can trigger off that email blast from there, right? And so this whole automation can just, once it's set up, it takes 5 minutes to set it up. it keeps working. So every day you click a button, this whole thing will repeat for, let's say, 20, 30, 40, 50 prospects that you want to reach out. And then check on yesterday's request and day before's and whoever have accepted, and the whole process repeats. So that's one use case. On the right-hand side is a very clever use case that happens even when you get the email address from somewhere else. So most marketers, particularly a lot of Go high-level users, would already be used to starting with the email IDs. That's the list that they already have. Now, this is a very interesting spin to it, that if you have the email address and their LinkedIn profile, then you could do two things, which makes it even better. So when you send out an email, particularly if you are like, starting with a new list and warming it up, when you send it out, very likely the recipient would not recognize you and probably not even bother. Even if you are hitting their inbox, they would probably not respond or do anything. And this is where it comes in handy, where you send out an email and wait for a day or two, and then send out a connection request on LinkedIn and saying, hey, you know what? I dropped you an email. I thought I'll connect you on LinkedIn as well. And so you are kind of warming up the cold email. So they are going to go back and check their inbox now and say, hey, was there an email from somebody like this, right? And so your emails, which were not getting opens, will start getting opens much, much more than what you were doing before, right? And then the rest of it, I kind of explained, followed through, saying once you accepted, send out a thank you message, either on LinkedIn or on email, and continue your magic, right? So these are the two things
the example on the right, that happens from HighLevel, or do you have to upload your email list into Linkdra?
Right. So the reverse of HighLevel integration doesn't exist right now. But it's easy. You can just download that spreadsheet and upload it here.
Got it.
Because natively on HighLevel, I don't think there's a column or a field to capture LinkedIn IDs or URLs. It says website. So we can use the website one, or you can create a custom field to add LinkedIn. But the simplicity is you take the list and upload it and go. But the reverse, the first side of it is automated in the sense when you start with Linkdra, the email and the contact details automatically go to HighLevel.
Gotcha. Cool. I like it. I like,
awesome.
So it's the connection request. As soon as they accept it, that's when you get access to the email, and you could go off and running in both channels, email through HighLevel, messaging on LinkedIn.
Absolutely.
And now you've got double the shot. Makes sense.
Yep. You can actually kind of like, put two channels, multi-channel. Well, I would probably say at least two channels is better than one, so that if they miss on one, you're catching them on the other one, right? And if you thought this is cool, then I have something else for you, which is going to be fun.
All right, let's see it.
Yep. So this is what we do. Is based on the responses, there is an AI engine now which parses and figures out whether they are responding in a positive way, in an engaging way, right? And so it automatically gets tagged as a lead with labels like this, saying somebody would say, hey, you know what, this is not a good time, once you get a response back, right? And so it will get marked as no interest. Whereas somebody would say, hey, you know what, here's my email ID, let's set up some time next week, here's my phone number. That's a hot lead. So the parse AI engine will figure that out and mark it as hot. If there is nothing so outstanding in their response, but they just sent you a thumbs up or saying thank you and et cetera, then it's just marked new. Or if they say something warmer than just thank you, then it becomes warm. Or somebody might even say, like, the last example is like, hey, this is not a good time, let's touch base a few months later, right? And so this auto bucketing of this happens so that the benefit is when you're running this again and again, and particularly for your agency users who would be running this for 10, 20, 30, 40 customers, it's a big pain to keep watching each one of them. Sure. And so with this, you are just pressing a button and then you're moving on to the next one. The next one, it happens automatically. You just get a report and see, okay, how many leads did we get and in what shape and form they are, right? And so you can get a report and send it to your client and saying, hey, you know what, these many hot leads we got in the last 1 week or something like that, or even today. So that makes, particularly for agency users, this is like no other tool in the market does this, because they are all about automation, not about getting results. And so this is, like I said, we are less about automation, more about results. And this is where it saves plenty of time for you to go and find more customers.
Very cool.
This is what I thought we would share about what we have done with Go High Level and what would be immensely useful for Go High Level users. And particularly, I know you have a good set of tools for agencies. So in fact, I wanted to show you one more thing. Maybe I'll go back if time permits. This is, I would love to show you the result of the Go High Level integration. And so I have my LinkedIn here open. I messaged Sean yesterday, and this is the interaction that I had with him yesterday. And through Linkdra, so Sean and Go High Level app inside out. And so let's see how it looks. When I go to contacts here, and this is all automated, happens by itself. Obviously, I have this. This is not the interesting part of it, but what is interesting part of it is this part of it. So my exchange with Sean, those notes are from LinkedIn, and it came all by itself, right? Cool. So the last message from him was absolutely happy to grab a call. That came from LinkedIn. Without doing anything, everything travels here. So imagine if you are running the next steps of follow-up and saying, hey, if this is a prospect, somebody from your team, the sales or the call center, can pick up the phone and talk, and they would know exactly what were the communication, what exchanges happened, and they can pick up the conversation right there with full context, right? They don't have to go and access LinkedIn and request Sean and saying, hey, give me the update on what happened, and et cetera, et cetera. So it can be very, very hands-off and still be in full context.
Nice.
What do you think?
Love that. That's great. No, it's
awesome.
Great to have the context on the high level side, so you don't have to be bouncing back or wondering what the heck that they said when they replied.
Exactly. So now you have your LinkedIn conversation, your email sequences all in one place. So multi-channel is not just about reach out, but if you bring in the third channel of a call, then the third channel would also be in sync with what happened in 1 and 2.
Very cool. Well, so if people want to check this out, the URL is linkdra.com, and we'll make sure to post that below. But did I hear something about a special offer for the high-level community?
Yes, sir. Absolutely. One of the big reasons I wanted to share this is particularly for the agency users, that we want to enable and let people experience as much as possible. And so 1 month unlimited access for as many of their customers and prospects if they want to showcase at no charge to us.
Wow.
And if you sign up 25 plus users after that 1 month, you are going to get 50% off for the rest of the year.
Very
cool. If you maintain that, it will remain at 50% off for throughout as long as you maintain that. This is only for GHL.
And where should people head if they want to take advantage of that offer?
We will know. So the moment you activate GHL activations, like you write back and say, hey, you know what? We enabled the integration. So we will have a track of it. And so we know you are a Go High Level customer, because otherwise nobody else will do that. So if you have a GHL integration on, you're automatically eligible for that. Awesome.
Well, there we go. Head over to linkdra.com if you guys are interested in checking it out. I know that, LinkedIn is, the data from LinkedIn, from what I hear, is about as good as it gets, right? And so this sounds pretty interesting. Ray, I appreciate you coming on to show us what you've built.
Hey, thanks a bunch. And you know what? I'm going to latch on to your last comment about as good as the data that is on LinkedIn as it gets. It's probably the most updated database anywhere on the planet compared to any other databases out there. It's current in real time. And so it's the holy grail, as they say.
I love it. Well, thanks again for coming on, and thanks for watching, guys. We will see you in the next one.